Well, Steph, today we're going to be doing your instrument oral here, and if everything goes well, then we'll go fly after that. So, we'll go ahead and close that so it's a little more quiet. Any questions for me before we start here?
I don't think so.
Okay, alright, so I'm going to be using a plan of action today. We're going to be running through all this. It's literally what's out of the ACS, no more than no less. If you have questions, I mean, this is an open book test, so look things up, it's totally fine. You can ask me questions. I may or may not be able to answer those questions for you, but you have lots of resources at your disposal to look those questions up. So, first things first, logbook. We've already done IACRA, so let's just make sure your logbook is up to date, and you've got a tab that where you did your long cross country, looks great. You've got the minimum simulated cross country time. You've got your endorsements for the Checkride, and you've flown quite a bit in the last year. Awesome. So I'm satisfied with that. You've got your license, your medical. It is current. What kind of medical do you need when you're flying as a private pilot with an instrument rating?
Third
class medical,
Yeah.
So, how long until your medical expires?
60 months.
60 months.
Under
Yep.
40.
So that works for you. Perfect. So 2020 for you. Awesome. And does it expire the middle of the month, end of the month?
You have a calendar month, so it would be at the end.
And cool. Awesome. So you're current there. So now, what do you have to do if, say, you get your instrument rating today? What do you have to do to be current to fly under instrument conditions?
So in the preceding 6 calendar months, in your logbook, you need to have 6 instrument procedures, holding patterns and tasks, and intercept, fixes, waypoints, instrument, fixes using just your instruments on the plane.
Sure, yeah. Intercepting tracking courses, they say.
There you go.
Yeah, awesome. That's okay. So we've got that. Now, what happens if you go more than 6 months? What if it's been 8 months from the date of your check ride and you want to go fly and you haven't done those 6 approaches and holding patterns and tracking courses?
Then you go with a safety pilot or a CFII.
Okay.
And you get current under those conditions.
So you would have to do all the 6 approaches then? Okay. Now, what happens if it's been, say, 15 months?
And it's an instrument proficiency test. So you have to go and take a test with an examiner or with a II.
Okay, so kind of like a flight review. Not so much even a test, instrument proficiency check. So, yeah, so it's just an instructional thing. They'll bring you up to speed on what you need to know. Awesome. And now, what exactly when you're shooting those approaches, so say you do shoot 6 approaches within 6 months of today to stay current, and you're flying an actual IMC, I mean, if you break out at 5,000 feet and you see the runway from 10 miles away, can you log that as an instrument approach, or?
You cannot log that.
So when can you log an instrument approach?
So you can look that up on info 15012, and it says that you have to basically be past the final approach fix.
Gotcha.
To be able to log it as an instrument approach.
So you have to be an IMC on the final approach segment going down and below that altitude, then you break out, you see it, it's fine, you continue down to your DA or MDA still and your visual, and you can log that.
Right.
Awesome. Very good. Cool. When you're flying with a safety pilot, what do you have to put in your logbook? Do they have to sign it or anything, or?
Yeah. Well, you have to put their name, where you went, what approaches you did.
Perfect. Yep, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between being proficient and being current? So you told me what you would legally need to be current, so what's the difference between that and proficiency?
Well, if you're proficient, then you're actually comfortable doing all these procedures, and if, say I had taken this check ride and I'm current, and then I didn't fly for 5 months, I would be a little bit hesitant to just go on IMC conditions by myself.
Might not be as proficient
Right.
Yeah, so you're legally current to do it, but not proficient to do it, so it wouldn't be super smart.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Excellent. Explains it well. So, tell me about personal minimums. Do you have any personal minimums you've set for yourself as a new instrument pilot, or?
I do. So my personal minimums would probably be nothing less than 1,000-foot ceilings, and probably a mile more than the minimum visibility that you would need for a procedure.
Okay, excellent. Perfect.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I would do.
What's a good way to start lowering those minimums? I mean, over time you might want to fly right down to 200 and a half, the minimums for an ILS. So what would be a good way to get yourself more comfortable with flying in worse conditions?
Practice, and I mean, I would have to be able to slowly lower the minimums and do them, and if I feel comfortable that I can control the plane, and because it's a lot different being an actual IMC than practicing under the hood.
Yeah, maybe going up with an instructor on a really bad day and shooting approaches down the minimums could help you get more comfortable without getting into a hazardous situation that you're not quite familiar with.
Right.
Sure, excellent. So actually planning a cross-country flight, let's take a look at the weather for that cross-country flight.
Okay.
So go ahead and just show me what you pulled up weather-wise for TAFs, METARs, area forecasts. How do you know that the weather is going to be good enough or bad enough for us to fly or not fly?
Well, I went to weatherbrief.com, and basically it's really cool. You can type in your whole flight plan, and they will tell you all the information and route that you would have. So I always start there.
Okay.
And you can put your airplane information in there and everything. You can even file it if you want, which I haven't done yet. But basically it'll tell you your SIGMETs, your airmets, NOTAMs. It'll tell you all the just current weather for all the runways that you're planning to stop through or airports that you're passing through on your way. And then it will also, if you want, give you a forecast for, of course, this flight's going to take about 3 hours. So it's good to look at where you're going to be at what time.
Sure.
Not just your departure time.
So looking at like the TAFs, for example, for this route of flight, looking at the TAFs, do you need alternate airports, or are we okay with the weather the way it is?
Well, there's an airmet for IFR in the area. Right now it's quite early in the morning, so typically, since there's been a high pressure lately in this area, we tend to have fog in the morning and then it burns off later in the afternoon, and that's actually what the TAFs are calling for. So for the times that it's VFR right now here, but in the destination halfway, it's IFR right now. So basically, the TAFs are saying it's going to clear up, but since we're not quite completely sure, we do need alternates. I mean,
what would be the rule? I mean, if you were just going strictly by the regs, when would you need an alternate per the regulations?
So at your destination airports, 1 hour before or 1 hour after your time of arrival, the weather is less than 2,003 miles of visibility.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, 2,000 foot ceiling, 3 miles visibility. Excellent. So if it's less than that, we need an alternate. And how far away can the alternate be?
Well, you would have to have, it's basically, you have enough fuel to get there.
Sure,
You know, I tend to pick ones that are close by, but sometimes you don't have anything available that's really close.
Yeah. If it's too close, the weather might be exactly the same as
the
airport you can get into.
Yeah.
And so as far away as you want, as long as you can get there with the legal requirements for fuel, what are the legal requirements for fuel?
Well, you need to be able to reach your destination and your alternate and have an extra 45 minutes in reserve.
Perfect, yeah. So you're going to be shooting approaches, going miss, shooting approach, going miss, and then 45 minutes thereafter to figure out what the heck you're going to do now.
Right.
Any personal minimums with fuel that you have, or?
Well, I don't like to use the legal minimum. I like to use a little bit more.
Sure.
Because you're not sure if maybe you might be put in a holding pattern, or maybe there's clouds on the way and you don't want to go right through them because maybe there's possibility of icing or anything. So you kind of divert your direction. You're not going straight. So
anyways, let's say we're coming down here and you had planned for enough fuel to get to all these airports, shoot all the approaches, and then 45 minutes thereafter, and on your way to HQM there, they give you holding instructions. And you had the legal minimums required. You had the fuel for the flight and then 45 minutes thereafter. So they say, hold, let's see here, could they tell you? Hold at Puget, 180 radial, inbound, 5 mile legs. And EFC time of 35 minutes from now. So could you do that if you had the 45-minute reserve on board?
If they gave me a 35-minute holding time, and I knew that already, I would probably tell them that I have minimum fuel.
Yeah, you have to go somewhere else, because if you have the 45 minutes reserve, that reserve fuel isn't really made for holding. It's your hold fuel would be whatever's extra in the tank. So if you got an hour and a half on board, you might have 45 minutes of hold fuel and the 45-minute reserve, but you would want to use that reserve for holding and making circles, then have 10 minutes of reserve left to go land somewhere. So what would you tell them at that point?
Well, I could tell them that I have minimum fuel. If they say I absolutely can't come in, like say they had an accident on the runway or something and it was blocked, then Astoria is right there. So I would probably just turn around. And there's other little airports around here too.
Sure.
Where you could go. If they were to tell me expect further clearance 3 minutes or 5 minutes, I might, and because there's a jet coming in or
somebody else is using the airport,
somebody else is using it, I might say, okay, it's okay because I have 45 minutes extra. But
it's
any
not
more
ideal,
than that,
but
I would advise that I'm on minimum fuel.
Sure, that sounds good. What's the difference between advising min fuel and a fuel emergency?
Well, minimum fuel is, you have just the requirements, but an emergency would be that I am about to run out of fuel in 2 minutes.
So if you said min fuel, would that make them give you priority, or would you have to say fuel emergency to get priority?
They would give you definitely priority with an emergency.
Yes, they definitely would. With min fuel, it's more of an advisory, isn't it? So they may say, thanks for letting us know.
Right.
But they may not give you priority. So if you really need priority to get somewhere, then you would have to declare a fuel emergency.
Right.
Is there any penalty associated with declaring a fuel emergency?
Any what?
Penalties associated with that? Can you lose your license over declaring a fuel emergency?
Well, no, but you have to contact, so you basically, if they ask you to write a report or to report it to the FAA, then you would do so. Otherwise, if they don't say anything.
Yeah. There's not really a penalty associated with it. You might have to write a report, maybe.
Yeah.
But not a penalty. It's not your fault. You planned the legal requirements and then things happened. Now, part of your pre-flight requirements are check the airports with intended use, check the runway lengths. What else do you have to become familiar with on your pre-flight planning?
Well...
Especially as it relates to fuel and delays.
Okay. I mean, obviously, you check the weather to make sure that you're going to be able to get in there with the equipment you have in the airplane, so that won't delay you. If there's TFRs or if there's...
Think back to even more the most basic flight planning regulations, what they require you to do for flight planning. What do they say you have to know before you go?
Oh, well, the amount of time en route.
The amount of time en route,
and how much time of fuel do you have, and you have to look at the headwinds and tailwinds to see if that's going to hold you up longer. Absolutely.
Anything with air traffic or certain airports that are busier, or?
Well, you could look at traffic advisories and see if at your time of arrival they might have a block of really busy times where you have a lot of traffic coming in.
So you're familiar with the expect for the clearance time, and are you familiar with like wheels up times or times where they might hold you on the ground for release because there's other aircraft coming into the airport or airspace?
Right, they might make you hold on the ground until the airspace is clear. Sure,
so I mean you're burning some fuel unless you shut down. So anything like becoming familiar with any sort of delays in the system? Is there any reg regarding that, or? So Why don't you take a look at 91.103 and see if it says anything in there
103.
about what you have to do for your pre-flight planning, especially when you're under IFR. 91.103. So any known ATC traffic delays. So going back to that scenario, you're going to an airport and they issue you holding instructions because there's traffic delays going in there. Now I asked you, is it your fault for there being a hold? Well, part of your pre-flight planning is you have to be familiar if there's any known traffic delays going into the airport. So if you took off and you wanted to fly direct to Seattle, Tacoma International, then yeah, obviously there's probably going to be some traffic delays and you're going to have to become familiar with those, so you make sure you have enough additional fuel. So hold fuel becomes part of your required fuel really in the flight planning, not just the fuel to get there, fly to an alternate in 45 minutes thereafter, but holding fuel becomes essential because of known traffic delays. So flying up in the Northwest this time of year, probably not going to run into too many thunderstorms or anything like that.
Right.
We don't really have any convective weather that you showed me on the forecast. There's no convective SIGMETs, no thunderstorms out there.
Nope.
When would you get a SIGMET for a thunderstorm?
Over 50 knot winds.
50 knot winds at the surface, sure. Any other criteria?
When there's thunderstorms.
Sure, that's a good criteria for that, absolutely. Anything else, like hail?
Okay, when you get hail that's over 3/4 of an inch in diameter.
Pretty big hail.
Yeah.
Pretty bad for airplanes, yeah. So when you're going to get really bad thunderstorms, basically. Low level wind shear, things like that. So that'd be bad. What could we expect if, obviously, do you want to go fly when there's a SIGMET like that, or?
I wouldn't.
No, no, certainly. What can we expect in terms of weather for people that are flying in those kind of conditions? What kind of hazardous weather could you associate with that?
Well, lots of turbulence.
Sure.
There could be icing if there's hail in the area.
Could be icing from the thunderstorm, sure.
And hail, if it's big enough, will give you structural damage.
Absolutely. Any sort of updrafts, downdrafts, wind shear, things like
If
that?
you're talking about low level wind shear, then
Sure.
yeah, you get updrafts, downdrafts. Well, thunderstorms are associated with updrafts and downdrafts. So
Certainly.
you'd probably expect that. So
Yep, lots of those. With those updrafts and downdrafts, have you ever heard something called microburst? Cool. Could you tell me about that?
Microbursts. So basically, it's a column of air that is big. It's associated with a big downdraft. So basically, what happens is it almost looks like this column of air that's just exploding at the bottom and kind of spreading sideways. And it's usually associated with thunderstorms. But what happens is you might, when you're going into one, you might see big performance increase in the airplane.
So your first sign of it would be an increase in performance. All of a
Right.
sudden, things like increasing airspeed.
Airspeed, and you're climbing, which is unusual for in a climb to have increased airspeed. And then pretty soon after that, you're gonna get caught in this big downdraft, which could be quite significant.
So what do most pilots do? They see an increase in airspeed and the airplane balloons up, and so they do what? They reduce power and
Right, because that's typically what you do to
pitch
keep
down.
it level.
Yeah.
And then that gets you in trouble because then it can...
Because now you just caught into that downdraft, so now you're adding power and pitching up like crazy and getting really slow. What happens next?
Well, then...
Hey guys, thanks for watching the first few minutes of Steph's IFR oral. If you want to see the entire video, all 2 hours of it, the entire mock oral check ride, go ahead and go to flyatmikealpha.com and sign up for the IFR Ground School, the Instrument Pilot Ground School. And at the very end of that course, you'll see all sorts of awesome check ride prep for both the oral and the flight in the final lessons of that course, including this full entire video and a few other examples of instrument orals as well. If you complete the entire IFR course online at flyatmicalpha.com with that first officer membership, we guarantee you will pass your check ride, or we'll pay for it, and we'll even sit down with you via Skype or FaceTime. Our instructors will actually go through an entire mock oral with you when you sign up for that check ride prep membership online at flyatmicalpha.com. Last year, about 32% of the pilots who went for their instrument check ride did not pass, unfortunately. However, 100% of the students at flyatmicalpha.com that completed our courses did pass their check ride. We have not had a single student fail a check ride ever at the private pilot, instrument, or commercial pilot level. Go online, check out the premium course, the 2018 Instrument Pilot Ground School, and as always, guys, if you can't fly every day, then fly at mikealpha.com. We look forward to seeing you online in the course.